I like early cinema very much, and I see a kind of common thread between early movies and comics, more than even contemporary movies, although there's certainly a whole giant school of comics that is built on a contemporary movie way of making. But that idea that things are highly abstracted, in a silent film, things tend to be much more abstract. Like the Murnau film that I missed some key moments of by dozing off. It's crazily, it looks real, but what's going on is a total fog, a strange fog, with a lot of emotion in it, and things are shown rather than told. Now there's a lot of movies that are made that are just action, but there are other movies that are made that are all talking. And I now, after having gotten interested in silent movies back when in my late teens, early 20s, I understand the essays that came in 1929 about how it's so terrible that sound was invented for film because it's destroying a great medium. It took a while for people to understand how to use sound to make something that still had the visual possibilities of movies, because the microphone was too strong. You had to put it in every scene, and people couldn't move around as much, you know. So one thing I realized while here even is a couple of movies in the notes for a couple of the movies that were shown here, including a film called Schatten and another one called Minel Montant. Do you know which one I mean? Those two movies were very specifically made without any intertitles. And that area has become especially interesting to me because I've tried to figure out, why are comics considered, until very recently, such a low medium, like junk, just by their nature? Well, in a way it was true for most of movies as well. They were just junk. And one of the things that some filmmakers who wanted it to be a real art thought they had to do was stop having intertitles. If you have an intertitle, it stops being art. If you make a movie that is all visual, it's one step closer to being art. Why? I think it traces back to something that affected comics even before they were born, which is in the 18th century, there's a philosopher named Gotthold Lessing who wrote about the proper function of pictures and the proper function of words. Each has its own area, and they shouldn't go into each other's place. So words take place in time because one word comes after another word. So it's the epic poetry, the narration, the narrative is the proper thing to make with words. Lessing thought it was very useless to make a poem about teacups on a table. This is the job of a painting. And visual art wasn't supposed to make a story, it could make an emblem, like Adam and Eve with Eve holding the apple, but not the whole story of Adam and Eve. This was the job for words. And of course this wasn't true until a certain moment in the history of art. If I go to any of these great crazy churches in Italy, they had lots of comics, it's just that they were done on glass, stained glass comic books. They didn't know about newsprint. And these things were superhero stories, you know, about a man who could take water and turn it into wine and then walk on top of the water. One more superhero from Marvel Comics. That area of where words, where pictures, what happens when you really violate that Enlightenment notion that was made because people had to now learn to read. It was part of your job. You weren't a peasant anymore. When you're 7 years old, you're a grown-up. You can work in the field like bigger people. You drink beer with them after you finished working at night. Now it took longer to make an adult human, because adult humans began to be expected to learn how to read, and that takes time. And in order to make that happen, pictures became demoted. They became less. Pictures are just training wheels on a bicycle. Until you learn to ride on two wheels, you can use these little wheels in the back. Before you really learn how to read, you can use these pictures that show a little boy running and it says, see Dick, run Dick, run. And you learn how to read without the pictures. But of course, our brains don't separate that way. We have words, we have pictures in our brain, and they really work the way comics work. So it's something that an aspect of silent film has very much in common with comics. So that's part of it. Part of it is I just like things at their beginnings. I like very early rock and roll. I like ragtime. I like early hot jazz when it's being invented. I like novels before they were called novels, like Tristram Shandy is one of the really great books. And I like movies when Lumiere and Méliès were trying to just figure out what the hell is a movie. So these are the things that finally got me to get off my ass and bring myself here rather than just think about doing it.